How do you like the new table?
It's marvelous.
Marvelous. You weren't along when I chose this one, though.
Nope, I was relaxing at home.
I sent him pictures, and you chose this one out of all the pictures I sent. This is the one, and guess what? I went with what you wanted, huh? Like I always do.
Like you always do.
Yeah, I always do. Hey, everyone. It's
Mark
good.
this day down on the calendar.
Yeah, Doug. Every time I agree with you or say you're right, you say you better find a calendar to mark down the day. But anyway, it's good to be back. It's another Friday evening, and we're here once again to talk to you. We had a good day today, didn't we, Doug?
Good day today. Very good day today. A beautiful day today.
Actually, it was a beautiful day. Perfect weather out.
Do you want to explain what we did today?
Nope, that's you.
Well, I officiated a wedding, and Tonya accompanied me to the wedding. It was out to Bedford Springs, up at the Grotto, which is just a big level spot with some stone walls around it with a waterfall coming out of the back. And it's just a very nice setting for a wedding, and we just hope all the best to that young couple.
Yep. It was a pretty day, and it's just, we had the wedding before it got too hot outside, and it was in the trees, so it made it nice for shade. But anyway, you were thinking a little bit, didn't you tell me jokingly a little bit about when you were talking to the people about what a man and woman are to do with their wedding vows, how they treat each other. Can you elaborate on how you felt that maybe you don't go by all those things that you were telling them, those younger people to do?
You're not supposed to say that. In preparing for this, you do think of things and how we are supposed to be as men and women and husband and wife, and I'm thinking, boy, I don't do a lot of those.
But you were telling them to do it.
Yes, but I try, but a lot of times we do fall short in that area. But those things that we did talk about are very important.
They are.
Yes.
But that kind of goes in with tonight's topic.
Which is,
am I a Pharisee? And I question, am I a Pharisee? Not, Doug, are you a Pharisee? The question should always be, am I the Pharisee?
you want me to answer that?
No. The thing with that is, we should always be focusing on what we can do to improve ourselves and how we treat others. So many times we'll look and point fingers at somebody else and says, yeah, they're the Pharisee. What would be a definition of a Pharisee for somebody who just doesn't know what I'm talking about?
A definition of a Pharisee.
Just something you think, when you think of a Pharisee, what do you think a Pharisee is?
I think a Pharisee is somebody who is focused upon themselves, to the point where they cannot see Jesus.
Well, that's a good point.
If you're looking at it from the standpoint of the church, I think it's a person who is so focused on themselves, focused on man-made law, rules, procedure, tradition, to where that just kind of sucks you right out of being in the Spirit or being in God's Spirit.
Very good, very good. The definition that I looked up, now there's a couple of definitions for what a Pharisee is, but of course a Pharisee was a member of an ancient Jewish sect that emphasized strict interpretation and observance of the Mosaic law in both its oral and written form. So they were just so concerned with the law, and of course we know they made up, I don't know, like 600 some other laws that people had to abide by. But the one that most people, I think, thinks about is a hypocrite, a self-righteous person who, that's what, like we were talking about the wedding, when you're standing up there and you're telling these young kids, this is what marriage is to be. If you're telling someone that's what marriage is to be, that's how your life should be showing that that's what marriage is, because you yourself are doing it.
Correct.
So, and here's the definition of a self-righteous person: having or showing a strong belief that your own actions, opinions, etc. are right and other people's are wrong. So that's also. So a hypocrite would be somebody who thinks that they are so fantastic, they're great, everybody else is wrong, and everybody else needs to be judged. You need to correct them on everything that they do. You kind of turn your nose up at them. Somehow God loves you best, and look at what they're doing.
I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah, yeah. So, let's see, I had some, who do you think are common targets that just we as society, not necessarily the church, because I was looking at some of these things that I came up with, which seems to be common, and they're all external things. People pick at fat people, skinny people, people with tattoos, piercings, wild-colored hairstyles. People pick at black people, white people. It depends on which nationality you are. People pick at them. People with disabilities, whether it be physical or mental. They pick on unemployed people, people on assistance, people who dress provocatively, gay people, women with lots of kids and no husbands. There's a whole list. It just goes on and on. Can you think of?
That's about everybody. That doesn't leave anybody else.
But those are like common people that we target. But if you think of all that, those are all external things. Those are just things that we can see on the outside. Even where I have someone who is unemployed, we don't know why that person is in that position, or an unmarried woman who has a ton of kids. We don't know what happened, but we might look down, we might frown upon somebody who has piercings in their nose holes all around their face, everywhere sticking out. But if we start focusing on the outside, we miss what those people have to offer us from the inside. And that's what the Pharisees did. They missed out on Jesus because they were so worried about who he was going to be, what he was going to be. And here he was standing right in front of them, and they missed out on him.
They were so focused upon themselves. Their authority was being threatened. Their rule was being threatened. And all of that was clouding their vision to the point where they could not see God, who was standing right in
there,
front of them.
right
Yes.
there. I have in Matthew 23, it says here, Jesus condemns the Pharisees and the teachers of the law of Moses. Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The Pharisees and the teachers of the law are experts in the law of Moses. So obey everything they teach you, but don't do as they do. After all, they say one thing and do something else. They pile heavy burdens on people's shoulders and won't lift a finger to help. Everything they do is just to show off in front of others. They even make a big show of wearing scripture verses on their foreheads and arms, and they wear big tassels for everyone to see. They love the best seats at the banquets and the front seats in the meeting places. And when they are in the market, they like to have people greet them as their teachers. You Pharisees and teachers are show-offs, and you're in for trouble. You wash the outside of your cups and dishes, while inside there is nothing but greed and selfishness. You blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup, and then the outside will also be clean. You Pharisees and teachers are in for trouble. You're nothing but show-offs. You're like tombs that have been whitewashed. On the outside they are beautiful, but inside they are full of bones and filth. That's what you are like. Outside you look good, but inside you are evil and only pretend to be good." That's some pretty strict stuff there. He's really letting them know that he doesn't appreciate that. So when we act like Pharisees, you think we're making Jesus very happy?
No, definitely not.
And this is just a little thing here. The Pharisees would not live up to what they were taught. They were so overly concerned with the externals that they neglected the weightier matters of the law and the simple truths about God and man. When their own Messiah had appeared in Israel, they were so blinded by their observances and the minute details that they completely missed him. And I have here, do we completely miss Jesus sometimes by our own blindness? Is he right there in front of us and we are so focused on what the rules teach us that we just can't see them.
I think we all are guilty of that
Oh,
at
yeah.
times.
I had here, I was going to ask you if you could think of a time where, we're going to do it backwards here, where somebody treated you like they were a Pharisee, they kind of looked down upon you, and don't say Tonya. Can you think of a time? If you can't, that's great.
I'm sure there has been times, but apparently nothing that just affected me so bad that I could not forget it. But,
What about, can you remember a time where you treated someone poorly, like you were a
Never.
Pharisee? Yeah, like you were a Pharisee. Come on, there has to be a time or two you've been.
I think
somebody.
there's plenty of times where I have in my inner thoughts
Yeah,
have judged people, have looked down upon people, just not having a very high opinion of them and not even knowing them. I'm not one to really be verbal with that sort of thing, but it doesn't matter if I thought it.
that's
And
just
it
the
was
same.
it was just the same. So yeah, there are plenty of times where I have thought that way.
Go ahead. Were you going to say something else?
Well, as we grow in our knowledge of Jesus Christ and we grow in our love for Him and understanding His love for us, that changes. And I know within myself, God has changed me a lot in that way, because if I feel myself going down that path, it's a lot easier to catch myself thinking that way and asking God for forgiveness and be able to look at that person from a different perspective and not the perspective of condemnation or judgment. So God does change you as you grow within Him.
That's true. That's true. Since when I met you, I had Kibbins and Kimberly. When I met you, they were 6 years old and 3 years old. Yep. So now they're, 36 and 33. So about 30 years ago. But that would have been back in the 80s, and Kimberly and Kibbins' father was black. And back then, that could be frowned upon quite often. It's kind of eased up today. But I can remember a time, now this could have just been my perception. It doesn't mean that the man had actually were looking down upon us, but I can remember going to, it's the Penguin now, or is it Bill and Fred's? Which one is it called now?
It's the Penguin.
The Penguin now. I don't know what it was called back then, but I can remember I took the kids for ice cream, and I was trying to get Kimberly in the back seat in the car seat. So here I am, this young white woman. Kimberly might have been 2, Kibbins might have been 5. I think this was before I knew you. I had Kibbins when I was 19 and Kimberly at 22. So I might have been 23 years old, this white young girl with these 2 black kids. So needless to say, I'm trying to put Kimberly in the car seat. And the car, I must have left it in neutral or something. But there's just a slight hill. It's just enough of a slope going into that parking lot. I was stuck back there with Kimberly, and the car started to go towards the road. And the traffic moves pretty fast along that route. That's Route 220. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this guy comes running over to the car, hops into the driver's seat, and puts it in park. And I'm thanking the fellow. He barely looks at me. He doesn't even talk to me. He looks disgusted at me. And it could have just been my perception. But what I thought was, oh, he probably thinks I'm just a dumb kid who got myself in trouble with a black man and has these 2 kids, and he had to help me out. But I don't know who the guy was, but I do thank him to this day, because we probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. So whether he had a Pharisee attitude or whether he just wasn't in the mood to talk. I don't know. But there's been plenty of times where I know that I've been a Pharisee to people. One of those, well, go ahead. It seems like you wanted to say something.
No, you go ahead.
You know, you wouldn't think about this. I've been going to church, all my life.
Your life.
And I've been going in here to Bedford at St. John's for the last 50 years. I think my parents started us going in there when I was about 5 years old. And it was a more formal church. I mean, it's still pretty formal, but back in those days, it was really formal. So that's what I grew up. So that's what I know. So that's what I think is just what everybody does, you know. So, of course, once again, I met up with Big Gibbons, who goes to a church where I went to visit, and everybody else was black, and I'm the only white one there. Well, they were just having a good old time at church. They were praising God and just being lively, and just, back then, I just thought they were nuts. I thought, these are crazy people. I have got to get out of this church. What am I doing here with all these crazy people? Didn't take me long to realize that those crazy people were just worshiping God, and they were just enjoying it. They were enjoying the presence of the Lord. The Spirit was moving, and I was so blind that I thought that it was all about rules and regulations and up and down in the pews, and what reading do you do, and when do you do this, and when do you do that, that I missed the whole point. I missed that Jesus was right there. He was right there with those people, walking through that church, but I was too blind to see him. So I was a big old Pharisee there. But, and then there was one other time that really sticks out in my mind.
Boy, you're a Pharisee a lot.
Oh, I could give you a whole list. I could give you a big long list, but I'm just going to point out 2 times that stick out. That one really stuck out. And, but this one too, I had a roommate. Now, it wasn't a roommate. I did have a roommate, but this one friend of mine lived right down the hall. Went to Shippensburg College. I went there for a year, Doug. One big old year.
1 year, yeah.
And then I got pregnant with Kevin. So there you go. Another reason for people to treat me on the lower temple. But this girl, she liked guys. I mean, a lot. So
Enough said.
she had different men that she was with continually. Well, I knew that she did, but I didn't know to what extent. So one day she gets out a booklet for me that lists all of her contacts with different men in such a short period of time. I was flabbergasted. I was just flabbergasted to where I thought, oh my gosh, you know, I thought of a few things that people might call someone that had done some of those things. But then I came to find out that she had a father that abused her, and she lived in a foster home. So right there I caught myself wanting to judge her, but I judged her upon my perception of what life was. I judged her upon me and who I was, and I came from a family that had a mother and a father, and we were well taken care of, and we were loved, and you know, here I am at college, and I'm all ready to frown upon somebody else and what they choose to do, and have no idea why they're doing it, or whatever the case may be. It wasn't my business. And to this day, it's just not my business to know or to judge. My job was to love her and just be there for her. Not to pick on what all she did or how she lived her life. And by golly, we did. We hung out for the rest of that year that I was at college. We went places together. We did crazy things together. We had a blast. Even stuff that I won't talk about here, but we had a good old time. So, yeah, I've been a Pharisee quite a few times.
We all have.
But one thing that I do now, you know, with my situation with the kids, I don't believe I have ever felt like anyone looked down upon me at our church. I can never say a time that I felt that somebody was judging me for my choices at the church I went to. And, you know, we're a pretty, you know, it's not a liberal church, it's a conservative church.
Back then, it would have been a really conservative
Yeah,
church.
and I had never once felt that I was not welcome at that church. So that's a big shout out to St. John's.
There you go.
Take a little break. He's on the phone talking to his mom. So we'll just do this in part 1 and part 2. So you've just watched part 1. So join us here in a few minutes and you can watch part 2 of Am I a Pharisee? We'll see you soon.